Criminal charges in the death of 5-year-old Ashley Zhao.
Person in this world that we believe will take care of you as your mother.
On the night of January 9, 2017, the temperature in Jackson Township, Ohio dropped to 6 degrees. The kind of cold that bites through every layer of clothing. The kind of cold that no child could survive for long. And that's exactly what police were afraid of when they received a frantic 911 call from a local restaurant owner named Liang Zhao. "I can't find my daughter." Those 5 words launched one of the most disturbing missing child investigations Stark County had ever seen, not because of what happened during the search, but because of what was waiting at the end of it. 5-year-old Ashley Zhao had not wandered into the freezing night. She had not been kidnapped. She had not crawled into a hiding spot and fallen asleep. Ashley Zhao was already dead, and the 2 people who reported her missing were the same 2 people who knew exactly where her body was the entire time. Her own parents. This is the story of a little girl who was failed by the very people who were supposed to protect her. A story of rage, betrayal, and a cover-up so cold-blooded that it will make you question everything you think you know about a parent's love. To understand what happened to Ashley Zhao, you first need to understand the family she was born into. Ashley was born on December 30th, 2011 in the United States. She was an American citizen by birth. Her father, Liang Zhao, was 34 years old and had been a legal U.S. citizen for over 20 years. He had built a life in Ohio, settled into the community, and opened a small Chinese restaurant called Ang's Asian Cuisine on Portage Street in Jackson Township, just outside North Canton. Her mother was a different story. Mingming Chen was a Chinese national who had arrived in the United States and applied for asylum in 2009. Her claim was that she had been persecuted by the Chinese government for practicing Falun Gong, a spiritual meditation movement that had been banned by China's government. Federal judges reviewed her case, and they denied it, not once, but twice. By December of 2012, the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals issued a final deportation order for Mingming Chen. She was supposed to leave the country, but she never did. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, simply did not prioritize her case. She had no criminal record. She was not considered a high-risk individual. So Mingming Chen stayed in the United States, living without legal status, working alongside her husband at their restaurant and raising their 2 daughters. Ashley was the younger of those 2 daughters. Her older sister, known publicly only by the nickname JoJo, was about 6 years old at the time of the events that would follow. But here is the detail that changes everything about this story. Ashley did not grow up with her parents. Shortly after she was born, she was sent to China to be raised by her grandmother. For the first several years of her life, Ashley knew her grandmother as her primary caretaker. Her grandmother fed her. Her grandmother dressed her. Her grandmother held her when she cried. And then, sometime before January of 2017, Ashley was sent back to the United States to live with her biological parents. Parents she barely knew. A mother who, by her own later admission, had never properly bonded with her. A 5-year-old child, pulled away from the only home she had ever known, dropped into a life above a busy restaurant with a mother who viewed her as a burden. That is the powder keg that was waiting to explode. On the morning of January 9, 2017, Mingming Chen was inside the family's apartment in North Canton. The restaurant needed to be prepared for the day. Orders needed to be filled. Ingredients needed to be prepped. Chen later told investigators that she was overwhelmed. She was responsible for nearly everything at the restaurant. Cooking, cleaning, managing, all while caring for 2 young children. And then Ashley did something that every 5-year-old on the planet does. She had an accident in her diaper. That was it. That was the trigger. According to Chen's own confession, Ashley had soiled her diaper, and it sent Mingming into a rage. She later told detectives that Ashley had become disobedient since returning from China, that the child talked back, that the child misbehaved, that the child made her angry in ways she could not control. "Kids always say something, the bad things that made me angry," Chen would later tell investigators. "And I can't come to my house and not kill her." Those words, spoken with almost no emotion, would later send chills through the courtroom. On that January morning, Mingming Chen struck her 5-year-old daughter in the head. Not once, not twice. She punched Ashley multiple times with her fist, and then she slammed the child's head into the carpeted floor. Twice. A 5-year-old girl, beaten by her own mother over a dirty diaper. When Liang Zhao discovered what had happened, Ashley was lying on the floor. Green fluid was seeping from her mouth. He rushed to pick her up. He carried her to the bathroom and tried to wash the fluid from her face. Then he noticed something that turned his blood cold. Ashley was not breathing. Zhao attempted CPR. He pressed on her tiny chest. He tried to breathe life back into his daughter, but it was too late. Ashley's heart had stopped beating. And that is when the nightmare should have ended and the accountability should have begun. A father discovers his child is dead. He calls 911. He tells the truth. Justice follows. But that is not what happened. Instead, Mingming Chen looked at her husband and said 5 words that would define the rest of this case. "Told my husband to take care of it." And he did. What followed was not grief. It was not shock. It was not the desperate scramble of parents trying to save their child. What followed was a calculated, methodical cover-up that lasted more than 12 hours. Liang Zhao carried Ashley's lifeless body from the apartment to the car. He placed her in her car seat, the same car seat where Ashley had ridden countless times when she was alive, giggling, looking out the window, being a normal child. Now she sat in that seat motionless, a 5-year-old girl being driven to her own hiding place by her own father. They drove to Ang's Asian cuisine, their restaurant, the place where they made their living, the place that families in Jackson Township visited for dinner on weeknights. Inside the restaurant, Zhao carried Ashley's body to the back room. He laid her down, and then he made a decision that reveals just how far these parents were willing to go to protect themselves. He hid her body inside a large salt container, and then concealed the container in a crawl space above the restaurant's walk-in cooler, a secret storage area in the ceiling, a place no one would think to look. But before they hid her, they had one more piece of their plan to execute: the alibi. They waited for their older daughter, Jojo, to come home from school. The plan was simple and sickening. Jojo would arrive at the restaurant and see Ashley lying there, as if she were sleeping. Later, when the parents reported Ashley missing, 6-year-old Jojo could confirm to police that yes, she had seen her little sister at the restaurant that evening. They were going to use their surviving child as an unwitting witness in their cover-up. And then, with their dead daughter hidden in the ceiling of their restaurant, Mingming Chen and Liang Zhao did something that defies all understanding. They opened the restaurant for dinner. They cooked meals. They served customers. They smiled and took orders and rang up bills while their 5-year-old daughter's body lay concealed just feet away, stuffed in a container above the freezer. When the detective later asked Liang Zhao to confirm this, his answer was devastating in its simplicity. "You guys actually cooked and served meals while your daughter was laying there." "Yes," and went on business as usual. The silence that followed said more than any words ever could. It was not until later that evening, roughly 12 hours after Ashley had been killed, that Liang Zhao finally picked up the phone and dialed 911. "Jackson Township, please. I can't find my daughter." The 911 operator asked when he had last seen her. Zhao stumbled through his answer. 3 o'clock maybe. 4. 5. He said Ashley had been sleeping in a makeshift bed near the back door of the restaurant, and that when they went to check on her around 9, she was gone. The story they were selling was that Ashley, a 5-year-old child not dressed for winter, had somehow wandered out the back door of the restaurant and into the freezing Ohio night. And initially, the police believed them. Jackson Township police immediately launched a massive search operation. The temperature outside was life-threatening. Every second counted. If a 5-year-old was out in 6-degree weather without proper clothing, she could die within hours. Officers flooded the area surrounding the restaurant. They brought in K-9 units, cherry pickers, even drones. The search stretched across the neighborhood, through parking lots, behind buildings, into ditches and wooded areas. The community rallied. Volunteers joined the search. Flyers were distributed. By January 10th, Ohio authorities issued a statewide Endangered Child Alert for Ashley Zhao. Her photo was broadcast across the state. Thousands of people were looking for this little girl. And the whole time, her parents knew exactly where she was. But the investigators were sharp, and something about the parents' story was not sitting right. The timeline did not add up. The details kept shifting. The reactions were wrong. Grief looks a certain way. Panic looks a certain way. And whatever Mingming Chen and Liang Zhao were displaying, it did not look like either of those things. After an extensive search of the areas outside the restaurant turned up nothing, the investigators made a critical decision. They turned their attention back inside. They began searching the restaurant itself, room by room, corner by corner, not just the places where a child might hide, but the places where someone might hide a child. And that distinction changed everything. In a crawl space above the walk-in cooler, hidden from plain sight, detectives discovered a large salt container. Inside that container was the body of 5-year-old Ashley Zhao. She had never left the restaurant. She had never wandered into the cold. She had been there the entire time, while her parents served dinner just below her, while police searched the neighborhood in freezing temperatures, while a community held its breath praying for her safe return. The discovery led to the immediate arrest of both Mingming Chen and Liang Zhao. Both were initially charged with murder. Both were held on $5 million bond. Ashley's older sister Jojo was immediately taken into the custody of Stark County Job and Family Services. A 6-year-old girl had lost her sister, and now she had lost both her parents too. What followed in the interrogation rooms at police headquarters is some of the most chilling footage you will ever see in a criminal case. In one room, detectives sat down with Liang Zhao. In another room, they sat down with Mingming Chen. And what they heard from both of them is the kind of testimony that stays with a detective for the rest of their career. Mingming Chen was brought in first. The lead detective noticed something immediately. There were no tears, no trembling, no collapsing under the weight of what had happened. Mingming sat in that chair with an expression that can only be described as flat. The detective addressed it directly. "Your daughter's dead. I just don't understand. I know that you're not crying. You said you don't have nothing left. You don't have no tears left. Mingming, your daughter's dead." And then the detective asked the question that would break the case wide open. What happened to Ashley? How'd she die? And without hesitation, without a single tear, without any change in her expression, Mingming Chen answered, "I killed her." The detective paused. "You killed her?" "Yeah." "How did you kill her?" "I just killed her." "What'd you kill her with?" "My hand." "Your hand?" "Did you hit her?" "Yeah." It was the most chilling confession the investigators had ever recorded, not because of what was said, but because of how it was said. There was no remorse, no breaking down, no desperate attempt to explain or justify, just cold, flat, matter-of-fact statements from a woman describing how she beat her own 5-year-old daughter to death. When pressed on why she did it, Chen's answers were equally disturbing. She told the detective she was overwhelmed with work at the restaurant, that she had only 2 hands, that Ashley was disobedient, that the child had messed her diaper. "I need to take care of everything from the restaurant. I only have 2 hands. I'm not 4 hands girl, I'm 2 hands." As if having a busy schedule justified beating a child to death. In the other interrogation room, Liang Zhao was telling detectives his side of the story. And while he was not the one who killed Ashley, his account of what happened afterward was equally devastating. Zhao described how his wife had gotten angry and slammed Ashley's head into the carpet twice, how he found Ashley with fluid coming from her mouth, how he tried CPR and realized the child was gone. And then the detective asked him about the cover-up. "Did you and your wife both agree on putting her there in that container?" "We talked about places, and I said this is probably the best place to do it." He said it as if he were discussing where to store a piece of restaurant equipment, not where to hide his murdered daughter's body. The detective pressed further. What were the long-term plans? What were they going to do if the police stopped searching? Zhao's answer was spoken with a casualness that is almost impossible to comprehend. "We don't really know. There was 3 things: burn it, bury it, or live in the ocean. Burn it, bury it, or throw it in the ocean. Those were the 3 options this father was considering for the body of his 5-year-old daughter, a little girl he had rocked to sleep, a little girl who called him daddy, reduced to an it that needed to be disposed of." The legal proceedings that followed were swift. Both Mingming Chen and Liang Zhao were initially charged with murder. They were arraigned at Massillon Municipal Court and held on $5 million bond each. The case was presented to a Stark County grand jury, which returned a 6-count indictment against both parents. But as the case moved toward trial, plea deals were reached. Mingming Chen agreed to plead guilty to the lesser charge of involuntary manslaughter, along with charges of gross abuse of a corpse, obstructing justice, tampering with evidence, and 2 counts of endangering children. The murder charge was dropped as part of the agreement. Liang Zhao agreed to testify against his own wife. In exchange, the complicity to murder charge against him was dropped. He pleaded guilty to gross abuse of a corpse, obstructing justice, tampering with evidence, and 2 counts of endangering children. A husband turning on his wife, a wife who had killed their daughter, a family completely destroyed from the inside out. The sentencing hearing was held in December of 2017, and before the sentences were read, the judge had something to say to Mingming Chen, words that echoed through that courtroom and would later echo across the entire country. The judge spoke about the horror of what had happened, the horror of a 5-year-old girl being beaten to death by her own mother. And then the judge looked directly at Mingming Chen and delivered a statement that no one in that courtroom would ever forget. The horror of being beaten by her own mother, and I use the word mother with great pain. I find when talking to you, it's insulting to mothers who do what they are supposed to do for their children. The judge paused. No number of years is enough. 100 years is not enough. Mingming Chen was sentenced to 22 years in prison. After serving her sentence, she would be turned over to immigration officials and deported to China, the country that she had been ordered to return to years earlier, a deportation that, if it had been enforced, might have saved Ashley's life. Liang Zhao was sentenced to 12 years in prison for his role in hiding his daughter's body and obstructing the investigation. The case of Ashley Zhao forces us to confront something deeply uncomfortable. The people we trust most in this world, the people who bring us into this world, are sometimes the people who take us out of it. Ashley Zhao never had a chance. She was born in America but raised in China by her grandmother, the woman who truly cared for her. When she was sent back to her parents, she was sent to a home where she was seen as an inconvenience, a burden, a problem to be managed between restaurant shifts. She was 5 years old. She had just celebrated her birthday 10 days earlier. She was learning to navigate a new country, a new language, and new parents who were strangers to her. And for the crime of being a 5-year-old, for having an accident in her diaper, for being a child who acted like a child, she was beaten to death by her own mother. And then her body was hidden in a salt container above a restaurant freezer, while her parents served kung pa chicken to the dinner crowd. Think about that. The customers who sat in Ng's Asian cuisine on the night of January 9th, 2017, eating their meals and chatting with their families, had no idea that a dead child was hidden just above their heads. No idea that the woman who took their order had killed her daughter that very morning. No idea that the man who cooked their food had carried his daughter's lifeless body in a car seat and stuffed her into a container to hide her. That restaurant is now closed. The building still stands on Portage Street, but the memory of what happened inside its walls will never fade. Ashley Zhao deserved better. She deserved a mother who saw her as a gift, not a burden. She deserved a father who would protect her, not hide her body. She deserved a childhood. Instead, she got 10 days past her 5th birthday, and a salt container in the ceiling of a Chinese restaurant. Rest in peace, Ashley. The world failed you, but your story will not be forgotten.